Welcome in, everyone, to Fire Mountain Live. I'm Patty. I'm a jewelry designer here at Fire Mountain. And today, the topic is how to be a bazaar ninja. Now, I want to just clarify that because the title can be a little deceiving if you're not reading it and you're just hearing it. So, bazaar as in B-A-Z-A-A-R, as in a show where you sell your work. Not as in strange, and ninja as in someone that does something professionally and well, not as in stealthy person with throwing stars, because stealthy probably is not my deal. I could probably get away with bizarre, but not stealthy. So we're talking about the very best way to do a show so it runs like clockwork. It runs smoothly for you and you have the most success possible. So there's all kinds of little tips, tricks, and hacks that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about choosing the right event because that's really one of the keys to making the event work for you is being at the right event. And then we're going to talk about a timeline, a checklist of all the things to take care of to make your day work. All right, so before we get into all of the topics, a little housekeeping. Make sure and comment as we go. I would love to interact with you and answer your questions in real time here. If there's something I can't answer, our social media person is standing by and she will give a crack at it too. Hi to Becky Justice, welcome. I'm glad you're here with us today. Welcome everybody. Let's go ahead and start talking about how to choose your event. So, choosing the right event. Let's talk about the date. The date is important in that you want to make sure that your event is not clashing with another large event nearby that could be detracting from your crowd. You want as much attendance as possible at the event you're at. And so if you're at like an event in a high school gymnasium and it's the same day as the county fair, you might be fighting for attention there. So think about that, as well as holidays. Sometimes a holiday is a big bonus. If Christmas is coming up in a couple of months, it's October, November, it could be a fantastic time to do an event and sell your wares as gifts for Christmas. If it's on a holiday, say on Easter Sunday, you're not likely to get a lot of attendance. People are doing family things generally those days. So just think about those when we talk about the date of an event. Next, let's look at competition. So when you're choosing an event, if you can figure out who else is going to be there, what other vendors are going to be there, that's to your advantage. So say you're a jewelry designer and you're going to be doing an art fair. You can check with the organizers of the art fair to see how many other jewelry designers are going to be there. And sometimes you can even find out what kind of jewelry they have to see if it competes with yours. If you have something very different, you're probably good. If you have very similar stuff, in order to be successful, you're probably going to have to outprice them. And so it pays to do a little research and see if you can set your prices to a point where you still get a nice healthy profit, but you outprice the competition, just a little bit lower. You can do really well that way, but really look at your competition, okay? Next, in choosing an event, let's look at customers. So where is your event and who is your average customer? If you're going to an upscale event in an upscale neighborhood, you can probably charge a little bit more. If you have more artsy pieces, if you have higher end pieces, you're more likely to sell them there than if you're in an event, say at a church social or something like that, a church bazaar, in a lower kind of socioeconomic neighborhood. You might have to have pieces that are at a little lower price point in order to successfully sell. So really look at who your average customer is. Okay, next in choosing your event, let's look at your inventory. Say the event is coming up soon. Say it's in just 3 weeks or so. And you have to look at how much inventory do I have on hand? Is it worth doing this event? Do I have enough to sell? And if I don't have enough, do I have enough time to get enough ready? And do I have enough capital to do that before the event? So always look at what you have available to sell and what you can get available by the event. All right, next in choosing the event, let's look at lugging distance. A lot of people don't think about this, but I've done enough shows that I know that this is an important point. You know, I'm a jewelry designer, and I actually started out my jewelry design career doing shows, art fairs and craft fairs and things like that. And the distance that you have to move your stuff from your car to your booth space can be considerable. So think about how far that is. Find out the closest place you can park in order to get your stuff to your booth. And if it's very far, do you have enough help to do that without breaking your back, okay? Something to think about. Next, in choosing a really good event for you, let's talk about internet and electricity. If you're going to be doing credit card sales, you may want to use a credit card reader, an electronic one, or do that on your iPad or something like that. So you might need internet connection. So make sure and check with the event organizer and find out how strong the internet connection, how reliable it is, where your booth placement will be. Sometimes you're at a big event and it's stronger in one place and weaker in another, and the organizer might have that information. So check on your internet connection. Electricity, if you have something in your booth that needs to be plugged in, say if you have lights that need to be plugged in, or a revolving sign or something like that, make sure that you have electricity close to your booth, and make sure that you have appropriate extension cords if they're not provided for you. Ask your organizer about that. Most of us don't need electricity. In case you do, it's something to think about. All right, next in choosing a really good event for you, let's think about furniture. So, we all need tables and chairs, and sometimes we need a place to hang a sign. So sometimes a venue that you're going to be at is providing the tables and chairs, or they're providing pipe and drape, which is that kind of system that goes behind and between the booths, so you have a place to hang a sign. Sometimes the event provides absolutely nothing but a marked off space, so make sure and know what they're providing. And if they don't have what you need, make sure that you have it available, or you have the wherewithal to purchase it for that event without eating too much of your profit, okay? Well, next in choosing a good event for you are the event rules. Make sure that you know when you have to be set up by and how long you have to be up every day of the event before you can pack it in and go home. Event rules are really important in that if you don't follow them, you can get in bad with the event organizers. We want to have a fantastic relationship with the event organizer. So we're going to be welcomed and invited back. It also helps our reputation. So when other events come up, people speak well of you at that event, okay? Sometimes also there's a multi-day event. Make sure that you're available for every day that they're open. Licenses and permits next. It's not often that you need this, but I've had it happen that I had an event where I had to have a licensed fire extinguisher in order to have a booth, and the fire marshal actually came around and checked them. It depends on where you are, the time of year, the rules of the venue. So you could have to have, some kind of specialized equipment, and they require that. If you're offering food things, for example, you might need a food handler's permit or some other permit. So just make sure and check with your event organizer to see if there's any license or permit that you need to actually run your booth. All right, next in choosing a good event for you is the time investment. Make sure that you have enough personal time available so you are not overly stressed to do event. So we're talking about the time to get your inventory together and make it, the time to travel to the event. Maybe it's a distance, maybe it's not just in your local neighborhood, but across the state or across the county. Some people go to multiple states. So think about how much time it's going to take you to set it all up, get there, be there, and come back, because you need to be compensated fairly for your time. All right, let's look at cost of doing the event. So we all know about booth fees, and the booth fees can vary greatly depending on the type of event. You could have a $40 booth in a high school gymnasium, and you could have a $750 booth at a wedding event, at those bridal shows. County fairs tend to be pretty expensive, and, a local, large craft event might be more median. But you could spend a lot on a booth, so make sure that you're going to project enough profits to cover those fees. As well, don't just think about the booth fee, but think about the fuel it's taking you to get there and back. Those days, these days, we know that fuel is a big consideration with gas prices. As well as hotel accommodation if you have to stay overnight, as well as any food that you need to purchase, stuff like that. So just make sure, and you're considering all of the costs, put that all together and subtract that from your projected profit to make sure you're making a nice healthy profit to make it really doable to do the event. All right, next let's talk about availability. So when you're thinking about doing an event, right away contact the organizer and find out how many spaces are left and how soon that they usually will sell out, so you know if there's even space for you to do it. Then if you do need a hotel or a rental vehicle, call right away and make sure those are open and available. When you're doing a very large event, sometimes all the hotels in town will book up fast. So check on that right away to make sure all your ducks are in a row. Hi to Teresa from Tampa. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us today. Remember, ask any questions that you have as we go. I'm happy to answer them for you. If you're coming in late, you can watch the whole thing start to finish. Once this segment is over, we're recording it. So it's always going to be available to you as a reference. Okay, so let's talk about the event checklist. Now we've talked about everything you need to kind of consider to choose the best event. Once you've chosen it, what do you do to make it work? So we have a great event checklist. Let's look at the checklist. So 6 weeks before the event is kind of an optimal time frame. You're going to have to adjust that if you don't have that much time. So say if you only have 4 weeks to the event, you're going to have to adjust the dates, but all of the things still need to happen. So let's say we have the optimal amount of time and we do have 6 weeks before the event. Let's look at what we need to do. So first, you're going to look at your products. You're going to find out what you have that fits the event. Now, if you make multiple different things, if you offer multiple different things, think about your average customer, think about the area, think about what interests people in that area, and choose products that fit that customer. The more you think about your customer and put yourself in their shoes, the better off you're going to be in selling. Then, as well, 6 weeks before the event, you want to look at your equipment. Do you have enough tables? Do you have enough chairs? Do you have table covers? Do you have signage, sign holders, that kind of thing? All the displays that you need. Look and see what your equipment is that you have available and order anything that you're going to need that is not provided by the venue. Also, 6 weeks before the event, look at your display and your setup. So we talked just a little bit about displays, but let's expand on that a little bit. You want to make sure that you have the right kind of displays to make your jewelry pop at the event. You really want to show it off well so people just are really attracted to it. You also want to be choosing the right kinds of displays for a show like this where everything needs to be portable, packed down small, be lightweight and easy to move. I'm going to show you just a few of the displays that we offer. First is a folding display. These are great. This one is a necklace display. And it has the 3 little snaps in the back. You just snap it apart and it lays down flat. You can stack them together. This is a great kind of display. We also have that in a bracelet size, same thing with the little snaps. These are really nice, very lightweight. They've got kind of a cardboard center. They're very flexible, but they're nice and rigid, and they really show off your product. Another type is a kickstand display like this. This is a great display because it shows a lot of necklaces. You have a multiple, availability there to show off your product. And it has a little kickstand in the back that just lays down flat. You can pack a bunch of them together. Nice and lightweight, easy to move. We also have some that are available just for a single necklace, just like that too. Another type of display that's great are these little kind of an L-shape one. It has a little stand that's built in the back. They don't fold down, but they nest together, so you can put a bunch of them together and they don't take up a lot of space. They're also nice and lightweight and very attractive. And they come in different colors and finishes. Here's another one. This is a bracelet ramp where you would put your bracelet kind of water falling down. These are great because they stack together again and take up very little space. They're also lightweight. So make sure when you're choosing the kind of displays that you're going to use, that you're choosing displays that make your eye move, for one. You don't want to just lay things flat on a table. You want your eye to kind of move up and down. So you go down and then back up again. Make sure you have different levels. It's called eye flow. And that will really attract people and keep them looking. If everything's on one plane, flat, or on one rack, people kind of don't see as much detail as they do when their eyes are moving like that. Okay. And if you didn't have them, go ahead and order what you need now, 6 weeks in advance. Also, 6 weeks in advance, start thinking about sales. Plan your cash box or your cash bag. Make sure that you have a place to collect your funds. Think about how much change you're planning to have in that cash box. Be very generous. A lot of people go to ATMs before a show and they just have 20s. So have lots of change. I usually like to have $300 in just ones and fives, but it's up to you how you decide to do that. Make sure your sales agreement with your credit card company is all up to date, that you have your credit card reader if you need one like that. It's important to have that kind of ready to go. You're also going to want to decide if you're going to have a backup, if you don't have internet connection, if you want a manual credit card swiper. You might want to pick one of those up. You can still do that and call in your sales later on. Totally works. The thing to think about when you're doing that, though, is that if you do a manual swiper, there's always the chance that the credit card will be declined. Whereas if you do it on the internet right away, you know if it went through or not. So you're taking a chance and you're trusting people. I have done that many times, and I have yet to have one not go through, but it can happen. So something to think about. And then make a checklist of all of the sales equipment that you're going to have to take with you. Do you need to buy bags for people to take away? When I'm selling jewelry, I always have a nice little bag for them to take it away that I put my business card in with the materials. Some people like to get those printed with the name of your business and your contact information. That's a nice thing, but it's not necessary. I've never done that. But it is a little extra something to think about. All right. Think about gift wrap. Are you going to offer gift wrap? I love to offer gift wrap with jewelry. I always have some kind of gifty takeaway so people can have that nice little surprise in their pocket if they're at the fair with someone and they don't want that to be seen. It's a nice little extra benefit. Okay, so next let's look at 6 weeks pre-event travel containers. You want to make sure, that you have the appropriate amount of containers, boxes, to put all of your displays, your inventory, your sales equipment in, that make it really no fuss, no muss to move it all around from your vehicle to your booth and back. I really like to have clear-sided containers so I can see what's in each one. So when I'm setting up, it's really easy to find the right one. It's also when I'm storing them, I know I'm grabbing the right thing. I love the kind with the built-in lid. So they have some that have a lid that open up like wings, and the lid never detaches. It just opens up and falls to the side. I've been using those for years. I got that tip from another jewelry designer when I very first started, and it's been a fantastic way to store and transport everything. Okay. Tables, chairs in shade. We talked about equipment already. Make sure that your tables and chairs are clean at this point, and think about shade. So when you're doing an outdoor event, especially, you always want to have some kind of shade, even if it's an overcast day. You want to shade your items and you want to shade yourself. So think about the footprint of the booth. An average is 10 by 10. And so most people will use a 10 by 10 pop-up tent. They're not as expensive as they used to be. They're a great investment. And if you're going to choose one of those, they come in aluminum or steel. And let me tell you why you would want to choose one or the other. So if you choose the aluminum one, it's less expensive, and it's lightweight and easy to carry around. It's attractive, and it works really well, unless you end up with wind and you don't have it properly anchored. Aluminum is so lightweight that if there's a little wind, it can easily pick up your tent and it can fly away. So think about that. I started with an aluminum one. I was at an event. It got windy unexpectedly, took my tent, crumpled it. I had to throw it away, and I bought a steel one that's been working for me ever since. It's a little more to move around, but I really recommend the steel. As well, think about a weight system. So steel, even if it gets windy, and you just never know when that's going to happen, weather's so unpredictable, it can still pick up your tent because of the way that a tent is. It acts like a little sail. So I recommend having a tent weight system. There's different ways people can do it. Some people use those little corkscrews that you screw into the ground. Those are great unless you're on cement. What I did was got a piece of 4-inch PVC pipe, and I cut it into 2-foot sections. I taped the bottom off with some duct tape, and I filled that with Quickcrete. And then in the top, I put an eye bolt and let that dry. I made 4 of those, one for each corner of the tent. Then they zip tie to the legs, and they're heavy, they're unwieldy to move around, but my tent has never moved in wind with those. They're a fantastic way to do it. Some people like to use water jugs. They're not as reliable if it gets really windy, but just think about a way to weight down your tent just in case there's wind. You do want to shade your product because the sun can have an effect on fading your product or your displays. And you want to shade yourself. You don't want to, have those arrays all the time. So just think about that. All right. Also, 6 weeks ahead of time, look at transportation and travel arrangements. So you want to make sure that everything fits in your vehicle. And if it doesn't, you might need to rent a vehicle. If you do, make sure right now, 6 weeks in advance, that there's a rental vehicle available for you and book that. As well as travel arrangements. This is a good time to book your hotel unless you did it right on the day when you booked your event that you're doing and paid for your booth space. So just make sure that those things are in place now, well ahead of time. All right, let's see where we're at here. I've got little notes to make sure I don't forget anything. It's a lot of information. Okay. Your policies are the next thing that we want to look at. So just in advance, think about what your policies are going to be. What's your refund policy? Are you going to take refunds if something is defective or damaged or they just decided they didn't like it? Think about your exchange policy. Will you take exchanges? Think about what kind of payments you're going to take. Are you going to take credit cards? Are you going to take cash? Are you going to take checks? I don't recommend taking checks. People don't use them as much anymore, and they bounce fairly frequently. I feel like credit cards and cash are enough, and most vendors have gone that way, but it's up to you. Think about if you're going to trade with other vendors. That's the other policy people don't think of. A lot of times you get friendly with vendors, and they love your work, and you love theirs. It's a fun thing to just do a trade. Not everybody wants to do that, but just know ahead of time, if you will. All right, let's look at business cards in your online store. The very last thing to think about 6 weeks in advance. Make sure you have business cards with your contact information and the information for your online presence. If you have a place that you sell, if you sell on Etsy, if you sell on eBay, if you have your own website or another place where people can see you online, make sure and have that information printed and ready to go. So if you need more business cards, this is the time to order them. Let's look at 4 weeks pre-event. Remember, ask any questions that you have as they come up. I'd be happy to answer those for you. Also, remember that you can watch this video from beginning to end later on after it's finished recorded. No problem. You can go and use that as a reference. So 4 weeks pre-event is time to envision your booth. Let's look at planning your booth layout. Figure out exactly how much space that you have, how much inventory and what displays that you're using, and make an attractive display, okay? Hi, Deanna from North Carolina. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us today. Set up a practice booth. Set your booth up and look at it like a customer would. Figure out where the holes are or where improvements can be made. Invite family and friends to look at to give you feedback. That's a really great way to know it's going to go well, to know if you need anything else or if there are things you can leave at home that you don't need to bring. And then finally, set up a lookbook. A lookbook is a little book of all of the things that you're not bringing with you. Say if you have work that comes in alternate colors or alternate styles, sizes, but you don't have enough space for all of it, take pictures of it and put the pictures in a book. That way people can browse your alternate inventory and purchase right there if they want to. All right, 3 weeks to 1 week prior to the event, planning. And there's a lot that goes into planning, so let's talk about those things. The first one is to promote yourself. Get loud and get proud. Let people know what you're doing. It's so exciting that you're at an event and you're showing yourself and you're showing your work. Invite everyone. Invite your colleagues from work, invite your family and your friends, and plaster it all over your social media. And when you're doing that, make sure to let them know the location, the date, the time of the event, and where your booth is going to be at the event, especially if it's a big one. You can even print up a little flyer to hand out to people. Great way to kick things off and let people know you're going to be there. Hi, from Kelly from San Francisco. Kelly, I actually grew up just south of San Francisco in a little town called Pacifica. So you're kindred. Welcome. I'm glad you're here today. Set up a promotion. You know, another thing you can do to get ready. So when you're telling your friends and family and when you're putting it on social media, you can say something like, hey, if you mention this flyer, you can have 10% off in my booth, or 10% off one item or your whole sale. You can do a giveaway. You can have an item that people will get a little ticket, and at the end of the day, you draw a name and you give something away. It's incentive to just come by your booth and talk to you for a minute. And sometimes when people do that, they fall in love with something and take it home. That's how you make sales. All right, let's talk about working on your sales pitch. Before you do an event, know how you're going to interact with people. The key to a good sales pitch is assertive, but not aggressive. You want people to be very comfortable in your space, in talking to you. You want people to like you. The more comfortable people are, the more likely they are to ask questions, linger longer, and buy, okay? So practice a few key phrases. Maybe things that aren't about the sale, but about the products themselves or about the customer. Compliment someone on their shoes or the dog they have at the end of their leash. Pet them, stop and talk to them. Talk about the piece that someone has picked up. Just give a little random fact, oh, that's Powashell, or that's sterling silver, or oh, I had so much fun making that piece. Engage people in conversation with very low pressure for sales. That makes people comfortable, and that actually boosts your sales. Okay, pricing. Right now, 1 to 3 weeks before the event, get your pricing in order. Make sure that everything is labeled, either the individual piece, or like this one, we have a rack where everything is $30 and we put that at the top of the rack. It's really important to price your work because sometimes people can be a little apprehensive about asking the price. There's a little embarrassment factor, like maybe I can afford it, maybe I can't afford it. So always make the prices discoverable by the customer on their own. If you don't want them right on the front, you can put a price on the back of an earring display or on the bottom, somewhere like that, but make sure it is discoverable by the customer. Geraldine from Salinas, also another California person. Welcome, I'm so glad you're here. All right, let's talk about printing your signs. So a week to 3 weeks before, make sure and have anything that you want to convey to the customer that's important to you, that you think will be important to them, printed and out. So if you take credit cards, you might want to have a little sign saying which credit cards you take. Or if you are cash only, have a little sign saying that. If you have gift wrap available, you might have a little sign saying gift wrap available. Those kinds of things. So think about that, print those up. You might want to say this whole rack is sterling silver and you'll write that in a little sign. But make sure and have all of those things that you want to convey printed and ready to go ahead of the event so you're not rushing last minute trying to do that. Okay. Also, 1 to 3 weeks before the event, confirm your reservations. Make sure and call even the event where your booth is going to be and say, hey, I have a reservation for booth J7 on this date for this event. I just want to confirm that you have my payment and I'm ready to go. That can alleviate some problems. Also, if you've made hotel or vehicle reservations, this is the time to confirm those as well. You don't want any last minute surprises. All right. Now we're down to the wire, 1 to 2 days before the event. What are the last things you do to get ready? So, get change. I have done this a couple times where I forgot to go to the bank and it's the day of an event and I've got it set up at 8 and I forgot my change. Really, really important to get to the bank and get your money ahead of time. And then make sure and stuff it in your cash box or your cash bag and put that in everything that you're packing so it's ready to go. Okay. Food and drink. Don't neglect yourself at an event. You don't want to be hangry. It doesn't promote sales. So make sure and purchase yourself some snacks, lunch, whatever you're going to need. Have lots of water on hand so you stay hydrated and have that ready to go with the event. You may be planning to eat the event food, but sometimes you're so busy you can't leave your booth. So have some stuff available that you take with you. All right, 1 or 2 days before the event, pack all your stuff up. Get everything in your travel containers, put it all in one place, everything but maybe your cooler and your food that'll be last minute. And have it ready to go in one spot in your house or your business or your garage, wherever that is, okay? And then event day, set up and sell. It's time to wrap it all up and to just enjoy the day. So what do you do on event day? Travel. Getting from where your stuff is located to the event. Make sure and allot yourself some extra time. I know that that sounds like something most of us would do, but we don't always think about the fact that you can miss an exit, especially if you're going somewhere unfamiliar. Or it can be really busy and it takes you a while to get into your booth space. There are little things that can happen. So give yourself an extra 30 minutes at least. I like to give myself an extra hour. And then you can just relax once your booth is set up. Just have that time. As well, when you're traveling, eat something. Give yourself some breakfast. Give yourself a nice start to the day so you're feeling good and confident and ready to go once your booth is set up. Unloading. So something you might not know is that you can ask the event staff, where is the very closest place that I can park to my booth? It's not always available, so make sure and ask that question. Another thing you might want to do when you get there, especially if you're very far from where you started, is just make use of those restroom facilities before you set up your booth. That way your stuff is still all nice and packed in your car and secure before you have to leave for that reason. And then set up. Go ahead, set your booth up. Once you've set it up, take a nice walk around, make sure everything looks like it needs to, and then make use of that under table space with the table cover around it and shove all your travel containers nested nicely together under there. It keeps your booth looking nice and professional and everything out of the way. I even used to keep one box in there with the lid closed with my cash box on it, so it's off the table and kind of tucked underneath. Okay. Next, something that people forget at an event, mingle. Take time, especially if you're there a little early. Walk around and talk to the other vendors, even the other vendors that do what you do. Make friends. Give everybody your business card. Compliment people. Ask them to come by your booth. You never know where the next great connection is going to come from. You may find out about another event that's fantastic, or another venue where people sell, or another source to buy materials. You make the best connections at events like this. Don't be afraid to talk. Also, you might want to make friends with a neighbor so you can take a little break during the day and go and look at the event or have a restroom break or whatever you need to do. Sometimes you can watch each other's booth, especially if you're the only one there. And last, relax and enjoy. Having a relaxed, carefree attitude where you're really letting people flow into you and responding in a happy, positive way. Limit your screen time. Don't keep your eyes on your screen. Be available to chat. The more you do that, the more you engage people, the more likely you are to sell. And that about wraps it up. I hope that that's given you some really good information on how to do an event, make it run really smoothly, and make it just work for you. Increase your sales and decrease your stress. Okay, well, in 2 weeks, we're going to be back with another Fire Mountain Live, and it's going to be an Ask the Experts panel. This is the first time Rose, Laura Lynn, and I will all be together, all of the designers here, and we're going to be answering your burning questions about jewelry. So don't miss it. That's going to be on July 15th, 2 Fridays from now. If you have any other questions, feel free to throw them in there, comment. We'd be happy to answer them for you. Please like the video, join the Fire Mountain family, both on Facebook and on YouTube, and we will see you next time.